It looks like if this prominent businessman from Jamaica is going to be spending a long time in prison. His name is Bitchy Stout, and he is charged with killing his wives. Not one, but two wives. Allegedly. Let's get into it. Everton Bitchy Stout McDonald, the popular Portland businessman who is accused of murdering his two wives, is set to spend Christmas behind bars after he was further remanded in custody. The 67-year-old businessman appeared in the House Circuit Court via Zoom on Thursday. The elderly businessman is charged with the 2009 murder of his first wife, Marlene McDonald, and the July 2020 killing of his second wife, Tania Hamilton McDonald. McDonald has a new representation. Attorney at law Earl Hamilton is currently representing him. The prosecuting team of lawyers indicated to the judge that they are awaiting further documents to complete the case file in relation to the murder charge. Someone else was accused in the murder of either one or two of the women. And it is said that the co-accused in relation to the murder of Hamilton McDonald, Astor Tiny Barnes, a resident of Epsom District in Anoto Bay, St. Mary. He is charged and he is currently behind bars because he had not been able to fully satisfy the overall condition of the $500,000 bail that was offered to him on May the 4th this year. So he's behind bars because he couldn't come up with the $500,000 bail. And so this person by the name of Astor Barnes, also known as Tiny, is said to be a co-accused. Co meaning he's part of it. So consequently, he was remanded into custody until December 20th for the police to verify another address where the accused could reside while the case is in court. The previous address that were given by the accused had been rejected by the police. So the businessman was denied bail in June in relation to both cases because the judge decided, due to his alleged propensity for violence, among other factors, he was not going to grant him bail. In pointing to McDonald's propensity for violence, presiding Judge Justice Vennett Graham Allen explained that he had been charged for cutting off a man's finger in Portland. That matter was, however, settled, she said. But it just shows that he is a violent man. Justice Graham Allen also indicated that along with two dead wives, there was a dead witness and concerns from the prosecution that if this man was granted bail, this businessman, that he could interfere with the witnesses that are currently alive. On February 1st, 2021, this year, the Deputy Commissioner of the Police in charge of the crime portfolio, Fritz Bailey, announced that McDonald had been charged with the murder of his first wife. The 50-year-old woman was shot in her driveway after parking her car at her Bongbrook, Port Antonio Portland home in May 2009 and later died from her injuries. Years later, McDonald's nephew, who had told police that his uncle had confessed to him that he allegedly orchestrated the death of Marlene, was murdered. So he told his nephew that he orchestrated the death of his first wife and murdered her. So now the Everton McDonald was on remand for murder. He was arrested for murder of the second wife in July of last year when he was slapped with a murder charge related to his first wife. 32-year-old Hamilton McDonald, otherwise known as Sassy, a businesswoman of Dolphin Cove in Dolphin Bay, Portland, was found dead with her throat slashed on Monday, July the 20th, 2020. Her body was just outside a Toyota motor car that was found engulfed in flames. So, allegedly, he killed his wife, left the body outside this Toyota car, and set the car ablaze in flames. I guess to hide his fingerprints. Allegedly. So the plot thickens, folks. He was trying to hide his trail. He left the body in the car on Tellington Main Road in Sherwood Forest in Portland. The police at the time said they had information that suggested that McDonald paid over $3 million to have Hamilton McDonald killed. So the police are continuing to investigate and they're probing. And they said after they were finished probing, following the probe, the businessman, Barnes, and a 56-year-old Danvin, also known as Bubble Minot, a fisherman of Ranch Hill in Portland, were all jointly charged with the murder, as well as conspiracy to commit murder. So there was new evidence that emerged in the case. This picture is a picture of McDonald's second wife, Tania. So the circuit court had heard that the prosecution had found new evidence in the murder case involving this popular Portland businessman whose name is Everton McDonald, also go by Beachy Stout. Allegedly, he is accused of orchestrating the murder of his two wives. The new development resulted in Justice Vinette Graham Allen further delaying her decision on bail for the 67-year-old accused. So the judge should have handed down and ruled on the case on Friday, but when the matter was mentioned, this new evidence, she indicated that she was postponing the decision. However, Justice Graham Allen, after learning that the prosecution had received new material, indicated that she would put the bail decision on hold for review of the evidence. So she decided to review the evidence before she decide on the bail and if the person should receive bail. The person being Mr. Hamilton. So a May the 13th date hearing had been scheduled for presentation of the new material before the judge ruled on the bail application. So the disclosure of the evidence was to be made to the defense before the next court date. That's called discovery. McDonald, who appeared in court via Zoom, I guess because of the coronavirus, so he appeared in court via Zoom and was remanded. In the meantime, Justice Graham Allen offered $500,000 bail to McDonald co-accuser Oscar Barnes, who was charged with murder along with McDonald in relation to the death of McDonald's second wife, Tanya. So the judge granted him bail on the condition that he surrender his travel documents and report to the Buff Bay police station daily. Why is it that these judges don't think that people have other means of escaping? You don't have to travel by a plane to get out of the country. There are ships and there are boats, okay? The accused was also instructed to reside in Windsor Castle and to avoid the Sherwood Forest community in Portland as part of his bail condition. Tanya's partially burnt body was found with her throat slashed beside her burnt car along the Sherwood Forest main road on June 20, 2020. What a way for a young woman to die. Oh my goodness. Another man, Denvin Minot, said to be the contract killer, was also charged but pleaded guilty in the House Circuit Court last September. So now we have three individuals. We have this Denvin Minot, we have Oscar Barnes, and we have McDonald, Beachy McDonald. So three people implicated in the murder of these women. So Minot was charged last September and was sentenced to 19 years in prison. So Minot, in a witness statement, claimed that he was offered $3 million by McDonald to kill his wife. In the first murder, a cold case they call it when they cannot figure out who the killer is. So in the first murder, a cold case, McDonald is charged in connection with the killing of Marlene McDonald, who was shot dead outside of her home in Bongbrook, Portland in May 2009. Now Marlene was the first wife. It is alleged that he had paid a police detective to kill his wife after their marriage crumbled and she left the matrimonial home. So McDonald's lawyer, during their bail application, had denied killing his wife. Barnes' attorney at law, in rejecting claims of his client's involvement in the killing, said that the prosecution had no evidence except for the statement from a co-accused. So he was implying that Minot wanted a lesser jail sentence. And this is why he implicated McDonald. So McDonald is being represented by attorney at law Bert Samuels and Matthew Hyatt, while Barnes is represented by Ernest Davis. So on December 9th, which was a week and a half ago, Mr. Everton Beachy Stout McDonald was remanded again for the second time when he appeared in the Home Circuit Court on Thursday. The court was told that Mr. McDonald, who had been without legal representation, is now represented by attorney Earl Hamilton in relation to the murder of his second wife, Tanya, on October 8, 2020. Mr. McDonald and his co-accused Oscar Barnes are now charged in connection with the case. However, Mr. McDonald is unrepresented in respect to the murder of his first wife, Marlene, in May 2009. So McDonald has a lawyer to represent him for the second wife's murder, but he has no lawyer to represent him for the first wife's murder. The businessman was charged after investigators reopened the case last year. He is to return to court February 3rd, 2022 to have his legal representation settled. Oscar Barnes, the alleged co-accuser or co-conspirator, who was offered bail in the sum of $500,000 in May, is to return to court on December the 20th for his proposed address to be verified. Mr. Oscar Barnes' attorney, Ernest David, who complained that the police did not comply with the September 23rd court order to have the address verified, said his client's mother died and he wants to attend the funeral. So the attorney for Barnes is asking for a little leniency for his client to go to his mother's funeral. His client being Oscar Barnes, the co-accuser. Mr. Davis, Barnes' attorney, said he sent the proposed address via email to the Major Investigation Division on 3 occasions in keeping with the court's order. The court was told that the investigating officer received an email on December the 2nd containing the address, but at least 3 alternative addresses had been proposed for Mr. Barnes to reside. So because 3 addresses were given, the judge said the addresses need to be verified. So a new court date was set. So Mr. Barnes and Mr. McDonald is going to be seeing the judge with a new court date, latter part of this year and also next year. So Danville Minot is already in jail. But this is what happened when he had his trial last year. So Danville Minot had been married for more than 2 decades, 20 years, and is known to residents in his East Portland community of Norwich as a family man who is devoted to his 4 children. So when Mr. Minot had his trial, he was let from the Home Circuit Court in Downtown Kingston as a convicted killer sentenced to 19 years in prison for his involvement in the gruesome slaying of Tanea McDonald, who was the wife of the popular businessman Everton Beachy Stout McDonald. Investigators had alleged that McDonald's death was the result of a murder-for-hire plot and was orchestrated by her husband, who had been arrested along with another man, Oscar Barnes, and charged with murder. So the prosecutors disclosed details of a caution statement reported by the police in which Minot claimed that Everton McDonald hired him to kill his wife for $3 million and reveal how he subcontracted another man to commit the crime. So Minot said that Everton McDonald gave him $3 million and he hired another man to carry out the murder. My guess is that he couldn't carry out the murder himself, but he wanted the money. So Minot admitted that he watched as Tanea McDonald was stabbed repeatedly before She and her car were set on fire by the man he hired. So that's really depraved indifference to human life. I guess he wanted to make sure she was dead, although he didn't want to do it himself. He stood there and made sure that she was dead. So before the judge handed down the sentence, the High Court judge, Harris, scolded the family man who turned contract killer, and she said to him, "You're a married man with a stable family, and according to the community, a good father." The judge further said, "I don't know what could have come over you to cause you to act in this diabolical way. Now you are going to be separated from your family for a long time," said Judge Harris. "You were seduced by a payment of a large sum of money and participated in the hope of getting a big payday," she added. Tania McDonald's partially burnt body was found with the throat slashed beside her raised motor car along the Shorewood Forest Main Road on July 20th of this year. Minot, in his caution statement, which was cited in court by prosecutors, claimed that he had been contracted by Everton McDonald to kill Tania. He said that the arrangement for the payment of $3 million would be made for the killing of Mrs. McDonald, one prosecutor disclosed, citing the caution statement. Minot, who is a fisherman, also resides in Portland, claimed that Beachy Stout gave him clear instructions on how his wife should be killed. He didn't want Mrs. McDonald to be shot, but said that she was to be stabbed and her body burnt, he told detectives, according to prosecutors. So McDonald gave clear instructions of how his wife should be killed. She is to be stabbed and her body burnt. This is the second wife. So Minot admitted that he gave the work to another man he knew, but the only name he has to go by is the Ute. He knows the guy, but he only knows him by the name the Ute. He revealed that on the night of July 20th, Tania McDonald picked him up in her Toyota motor car, and he indicated to her that he was going to pick up another man in Port Antonio. So this indicated that Tania knew him. So he was friends with the family if she picked him up. After they picked up the second man, the three of them traveled along Sherwood Forest, or towards Sherwood Forest. He said, when the youth asked Tanya to stop and turn around the car as they approached a three-way intersection. Minot said he stepped out of the vehicle after Tania complied with the request, causing her to become fearful. So he said as he stepped out of the car, Tania said she was afraid, and she said to him, "Where are you going? Don't you see it's dark? I'm afraid." And remember, people, he's stepping out of the car. He's leaving her in the car with this other man that she doesn't know. And it's dark because they are around the forest area. So according to Minot, the other man also got out of the car before quickly getting back in. So Minot said the man who goes by the name of the Ute grabbed Tania around the headrest of the driver's seat, and they were wrestling. He said he then saw when the youth stabbed her, and he saw blood coming from her sides and her back and her neck. So he stabbed her multiple times. A court prosecutor revealed in court, Minot said the man had a bottle containing an apparent flammable liquid, and the car caught fire, and Minot left the scene to call Everton McDonald to tell him what had happened. The San police reported that while the scene was being processed, Everton McDonald arrived and identified his wife's body, as well as her motor car. So as detectives were questioning Minot, he was so racked with guilt that he broke down in tears and recounted to the detectives the role that he played in Tanea McDonald's death. So as he was weeping to the detectives, confessing his role, he said, "Miss McDonald trusted me. She believed in me." So he sounded as if he basically was a good man who was just greedy for money. So Minot has already been sentenced to 19 years. Away from his children, his wife, the life that he knew will never be the same. And Everton, McDonald, and Barnes are scheduled for their court sentencing and hearing December the 20th and also next year, 2020. So YouTubers, this story is far from over, and I will be keeping abreast of what's going on with McDonald's trial, because he's in jail now. He has been remanded into custody again, awaiting his date in court, his trial date, and his sentencing. But how diabolical. You know, sometimes you get married to your loved one and you think it's going to be blissful, and a lot of times you marry your killers. YouTube family, if you like this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel and to my videos so I can bring you new content when I put out